long story short, was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. You know, I was pretty young, I think I was, well, no, I was like 19 and,
Damn.
19 years old, ulcerative colitis. If you were to look at me at the time, you wouldn't think, oh, that guy's unhealthy. You know, I had a 6-pack, could dunk a basketball. You know, I grew up playing sports, so I was an athlete. But I had this problem going on the inside that I couldn't really make sense of it. And the doctors were like, you know, no big deal. It's your genetics. I have other people in my family who have Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, I believe psoriasis, bunch of autoimmune conditions going on in my family. So they just chalked it up to like, oh, genetics. Here you go. Here's some medication. And that medication was hell. I mean,
yeah,
I think it was like 3 times a day, these giant horse pills that gave you indigestion, and it just wasn't good. And fortunately, you know, growing up eating the way that I did, home cooked meals, I kind of thought about it for a second. I was like, you know, one, I never liked taking medication when I was younger. I kind of had an aversion to it for some reason. Don't know why. But I was like, I don't want to take this medication for the rest of my life. So what do I do? And just naturally, I'm like, well, you know, beer is probably not good for you.
Shocker.
Eating a large pizza is probably not good for you. All this other crap at the residence hall probably isn't good for you. So I cleaned it up. You know, I just had an intuitive sense that the habits I was engaging with weren't good for me. And I didn't want to ignore it because I was also thinking like, man, I'm young.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm 30, I saw this picture of a colostomy bag. And I had this vision of myself with a colostomy bag, and it was depressing. You know, it was not something that I wanted to end up with. So I was kind of determined to do something to try to figure this thing out. Anyways, long story short, removed a lot of the processed foods from my diet, you know, took a break from the drinking, and that probably took me 90% of the way there. Yeah. Where I was feeling much better. But I couldn't tell, is it the medication totally doing this, or is it the food? And then I kind of took a leap of faith, and I was like, I'm going to wean myself off this medicine and see what happens. So I took half the dose, you know, for a couple of days a week, went down to like 1 pill, and then I completely stopped. And what was interesting is nothing happened. And it was kind of the first signal that I had. Now, I wasn't into the ancestral living at the time or anything like that, but it was kind of signal to me that what you put in your body actually matters. So I took it seriously at the time. And fast forward maybe a year later, you know how life, there's always the ups and the downs and the different things. Went through a number of struggles with surgeries and injuries from sports, which put me in a darker place, you know, where you tend to make not as good eating habits and you do stuff like that. And I'd have these short bouts where I'd get symptoms would come back. I'd start having issues with it. And around 2008, I stumbled upon our friend Mark Sisson and his content. And I just kept reading it. And I'm like, this guy's on to something with this primal lifestyle. Adopted that. And it became a lot easier for me to manage like cravings and things like this, because I think I was kind of getting to the root of what was actually going on psychologically. And then also just eating really good food. Yeah. You know, people think that you go on a diet, it has to be restrictive. But this diet, I was eating vegetables at the time and nuts and seeds and stuff, but man, I was like feeling like I had the best diet in the world, you know, nothing wrong with that. So that's a little bit about my story with ulcerative colitis. And I was finally able to kind of figure it out. And I've had multiple colonoscopies over the years since then. And the last probably 4 that I've had, the doctor's like, there's no visible sign of ulcerative colitis. Yeah. You know, they can send my cells to a lab and tell me that you have it, but it's in a completely remissive state.
Hello friends, if you enjoyed that clip, then you can watch the entire thing by heading to this link over here, or you can find us wherever you find podcasts by searching Radical Health Radio. If there's value here, please hit that like button, let us know in a comment what your biggest takeaway was, and hit subscribe, support the show as we support you. We'll see you soon.